My name's Ethan Vance. Yeah, just a regular dude, late 20s, maybe early 30s, you know? I'm a freelance graphic designer. Most days it's just me, my laptop, and a never-ending playlist of lo-fi beats in my little house in some quiet suburb in the US. Life's pretty chill. No big dramas, no crazy exes, just steady, solid. You get the picture. My thing, if you want to call it that, is digging around in thrift stores. Seriously, it's not just about saving a few bucks, though that's a perk. It's like a treasure hunt, right? You never know what you're gonna find, what stories are tucked away in those dusty old objects. I call it economic exploration. Sounds kind of fancy, but it's just me rummaging through old junk, trying to find something with a soul. Emotions? Nah, not really my style. I'm a pretty level-headed guy. What you see is what you get, and usually that's just calm. I'm all about logic, facts, explanations. If it doesn't make sense, if it can't be broken down by science, then it's probably bullshit. Ghosts, spirits, curses? Please, total scam. My brain's wired to find the why, the how, the logical conclusion to everything. Simple as that. Anyway, one drizzly Saturday afternoon, a few weeks back, I wandered into the usual charity shop downtown. You know the type. Smells like old books and mothballs, racks of clothes packed tight. My eyes were just scanning, like they always do. And then, boom, there it was. A leather jacket. Vintage, dark brown, softened with age. Looked like it had seen some stuff. Had that worn, lived-in vibe that just screamed story. I pulled it off the rack. Damn, felt good. Heavy, sturdy, just the right kind of scuffed. I slipped it on. Felt like it was custom-made for me, no joke. The fit was perfect, like it had been waiting there all this time. And the price? A steal. Less than I'd pay for a decent takeout. So yeah, I bought it. Obvious choice. Walked out of the store. The rain was barely a mist now, sticking to my new, old jacket. The leather was cool against my skin. As I started the walk home, something shifted, like a cloud rolled over the sun in my head, even though the actual sky was just gray. A wave of sadness, deep and heavy, washed over me, out of nowhere, like someone had just kicked my dog, or told me my favorite band broke up, or some shit. But none of that happened. I was just walking. My stride slowed. What the hell was that? My throat felt tight. My eyes, they just felt like they wanted to well up. It was so out of left field, you know? I mean, I don't cry, like, ever. Unless it's a really good movie, maybe. But this was different, raw, unfiltered. I tried to shake it off. My brain, the logical one, immediately went into overdrive. Okay, Ethan, calm your ass down. This is just a thing. You bought an old jacket. It's got a history. Maybe it's some kind of weird psychological kickback, like the aura of the previous owner, soaking into the leather, now soaking into me. Yeah, that makes sense. A kind of emotional osmosis, right? Or maybe my imagination's just running wild, thinking about who wore it before, what kind of life they lived. My brain's just overreacting, picking up on a new, strange sensory input. It's all just chemicals, hormones. Definitely nothing spooky, nothing you can't explain with science, or at least a good dose of self-analysis. I even gave myself a little mental pat on the back for being so smart, so grounded. Got home, tossed the jacket onto the back of my desk chair, poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, the good stuff, you know, the strong kind. Tried to focus on a new design project. But that weird, hollow feeling kinda lingered, a dull ache behind my ribs. It was annoying, like a song stuck in your head, but way worse. I glanced at the jacket. Just a jacket. A really cool vintage jacket. Nothing more. Then, that evening, I decided to head out for a quick beer run. Needed some cold ones for my Netflix binge. Grabbed the jacket again. It just felt right, comfortable, like a second skin. Put it on and headed out the door. The air was crisp, smelled like damp asphalt. Everything was fine for a bit. just a normal walk to the corner store. I was reaching for the cooler door, right? About to grab my usual IPA. And then, this dude, he just bumps into me. Not hard, just a glancing blow, enough to make me stumble a little. He mumbled, "Oops, sorry." But then, something snapped inside me. Not in my head, not in my logic center, deeper. It was like a fuse blew. A sudden, burning hot wave of pure, unfiltered rage surged through my veins. My hands clenched into fists, hard, muscles screaming. My jaw locked, my teeth ground together. I could feel my face getting hot, my neck straining. All I could see was red. All I could think was, punch him, knock him out, teach this asshole a lesson. My body was ready to launch. My feet shifted, ready to pivot, to strike. My arm, it was twitching, practically begging to connect with his face. My breath caught in my throat, a ragged, raw sound. The guy, he looked at me, his sorry hanging in the air. His eyes widened a little. He must have seen something in my face, something ugly. And he was right, because for a split second, I actually wanted to hit him. I wanted to see him fall. Then, just as quickly as it came, the red haze started to recede. My hands, they were still shaking. My whole body felt like it had just run a marathon. What the actual fuck was that? I pulled myself back, forcing a shaky breath. No, my bad, I stammered out, the words feeling alien in my own mouth. Sorry, really, my fault. I grabbed the beers, practically threw money at the cashier, and got the hell out of there. Walked home way faster than I normally would, my heart thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs. My head was buzzing, my palms were sweaty. I kept glancing down at the jacket. Did that just happen because of this? No way. That's insane. Totally irrational. My logical brain tried to reassert control. Maybe it was the coffee. Yeah, the coffee. That really strong blend I had earlier. Probably overdid it. Way too much caffeine. That's why I was so jittery, so ready to explode. My body just reacted badly. Simple. No jacket involved. Just caffeine. Or maybe I was just having a bad day. A really, really bad day. Yeah, that had to be it. Definitely. Okay, so it wasn't just a one-off thing. That sadness, that rage, it kept happening. Every single time I put on that damn jacket. It wasn't about the weather or what I had for breakfast or if I stubbed my toe that morning. The moment the leather touched my skin, it was like flipping a switch. 1 minute, I was just me, Ethan, chillin'. The next, boom. A wave of gut-wrenching despair or a flash of pure, unadulterated anger. It was a pattern, and even my logical, data-driven brain couldn't ignore a pattern that obvious. My brain, though, still fighting. Correlation isn't causation, Ethan, I told myself, staring at my reflection in the dark window, the jacket a second skin. There's gotta be a reason, a real reason. I refuse to give up on logic. I refuse to let my mind even whisper anything about, spooky stuff. That was for movies, for campfire stories, not for a guy like me living in a perfectly normal suburban house. I went down a rabbit hole online, searching for psychological effects of vintage clothing. Emotional resonance in textiles, memory transference in objects. Sounded legit enough for my old jacket theory. I found some fringe articles about how old things can carry, not energy, obviously, but psychological weight. Like, if you wear a soldier's uniform, you might feel a pang of duty, right? A kind of historical empathy? Yeah, that's what it was. Emotional osmosis. My imagination just working overtime. My brain was just overreacting, picking up on a new, strange sensory input. It's all just chemicals, hormones. Definitely nothing spooky, nothing you can't explain with science, or at least a good dose of self-analysis. Deep down, Yeah, a tiny, annoying little worm of unease started wiggling, a feeling like something was not right, but I squashed it hard. Nope, I muttered to myself, adjusting the collar, not buying into that woo-woo nonsense. Just gotta figure out the mechanics of this psychological kickback. So, I decided to run an experiment. My own personal, highly scientific, not really, let's be real, jacket wear test. I'd wear it more often, see if I could map out the triggers, find a rhythm to the madness. Maybe it was the color, the weight, the smell of old leather. I even started a little note on my phone. Jacket Emotion Diary. Seriously. Sounded insane, but hey, gotta collect data, right? Day 1. Jacket on, felt a sudden urge to rewatch sad dog movies. Day 2. Jacket on, nearly cussed out a barista for getting my order wrong. It was consistent, to say the least. One Tuesday, I had this big client meeting. High-stakes stuff, trying to land a sweet gig for a new tech startup. Dressed decent, iron shirt, but I figured, why not the jacket? It looked cool, added a bit of character. Plus, another data point for my little diary. We were at this swanky coffee shop, all polished wood, hushed whispers, the clinking of ceramic on ceramic. Everything felt expensive and hushed. Mid-sentence, explaining some design concept, I was talking about color palettes and user experience when it hit me, like a physical punch to the gut. An emptiness, a loneliness so vast it felt like the entire world had just left me. My throat got tight again, my eyes stung. Not just sad, man. This was a soul-crushing, desperate kind of lonely. Like a kid left behind in a crowded store, watching their mom disappear around the corner. An absolute bottomless pit of despair. I could barely string words together. My voice, it just faltered. I felt like crying right there, in front of Mr. Henderson, the most buttoned-up, no-nonsense guy you'd ever meet. He looked at me, polite, but definitely confused eyebrow raised. He saw it. He looked at me like I'd just started rambling about alien conspiracies or spontaneously combusting. I panicked. Just seasonal allergies, you know? I coughed, a pathetic little hack, then rubbed my nose roughly. Tried to laugh it off. It came out sounding like a choked sob, honestly. Mr. Henderson just nodded, slowly, his eyes still narrowed a fraction. I could practically feel him making a mental note to check my references. Managed to pull through the meeting, barely. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. My head buzzed with 1,000 unspoken, I'm so alone thoughts. But the whole time, that lonely ache was just there, eating at me. God, it was exhausting. I felt like I'd just run a mental marathon, dodging emotions that weren't even mine. Another time, a few days later, I was driving home. Cruising, minding my own business, jacket on. Just a normal Tuesday commute, same old podcast droning on. Then some idiot in a beat-up pickup truck cuts me off. Not just cuts me off, man, like nearly scrapes my bumper, forces me to slam on the brakes, for absolutely no reason. He just swerved right in front of me, like I was invisible. Before I even registered what happened, it was back. That white-hot, blinding rage. But this time, it felt different, more raw, more explosive. Less like my controlled adult anger, the kind where you stew and maybe complain to a friend later. This was like a toddler having a meltdown because someone took their favorite toy. Pure, unthinking, all-consuming fury. I slammed on the horn, long, blaring, obnoxious blast. My foot twitched on the accelerator, itching to stomp it. "What the F?" I screamed, my voice hoarse, cracking. I gripped the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles turned white, my fingers actually ached. My whole body was shaking, vibrating with this uncontrolled fury. My neck strained, my jaw locked. My vision swam with red. I wanted to ram the guy, honestly, just smash into him. It was a terrifying thought, because I'm not that guy. I'm not. I swerved. Not on purpose, not really, just a jerky, uncontrolled reaction. Barely missed the car in front of me, heart hammering against my ribs, breathing ragged, sweat prickling my forehead and running down my spine. My ears rang with the echo of my own scream. "Jesus, Ethan," I muttered, my voice barely a whisper, still shaking. "What is wrong with you?" Got home, parked in the driveway, just sat there for a good 5 minutes, engine off, jacket still on. My hands were still clenched on the wheel, even though there was no wheel anymore, just air. That rage, it just clung to me, like a bad smell, like a sticky, awful feeling you couldn't quite wash off. It was physically draining, like the anger itself had taken a toll on my body. The emotions weren't just stronger, they were weird. Like, I'd get this sadness, but it felt so innocent, so helpless, like a little kid who dropped their ice cream cone and the world just ended. Or that rage, it wasn't adult frustration. It was that primal, all-consuming fury of a kid who isn't getting their way, throwing a tantrum without a care in the world. It was pure, unfiltered, untainted by any kind of adult filter or understanding. These weren't my emotions, not anymore. They felt foreign. Too pure, too unhinged. And that was the kicker. My old jacket theory wasn't really holding up. My logical explanations were crumbling, bit by bit, like sandcastles against a relentless tide. I started avoiding the jacket for anything important. Client calls, grocery runs where I didn't want to accidentally punch someone for bumping into me, dates, yeah, right, as if I was dating with this going on. But the weirdest thing? The more I tried to stay away, the more it called to me, like it was waiting, watching, just hanging there on the back of my desk chair, innocent as hell, but I could feel it, a subtle pull, a constant, low thrum in the back of my mind. It felt like a game, a sick, twisted game, and I wasn't in control anymore. I was just a player, or maybe, more accurately, a puppet on invisible strings, dancing to some unseen beat. And the sleep, man, the sleep went to hell. I'd crash hard, utterly drained from fighting whatever was happening inside me, but then wake up in the middle of the night, chest heavy, a crushing weight, like I just walked out of some nightmare, some super sad, super scary dream. But I could never, ever remember what it was about, just the feeling, that awful, lingering feeling, like someone else's terror, someone else's grief was still stuck in my head, echoing in the dark. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe, trying to push that feeling away. My brain, the one that always needed answers, was just blank, for once, and that, more than anything, scared the living hell out of me. Man, I was barely holding it together. The emotions, they weren't just strong anymore, they were taking over. Each wave was like a physical punch, knocking the wind right out of me. Sometimes I'd look in the mirror, and the person staring back, it felt alien. Like the eyes were mine, sure, but the storm brewing behind them? Not a chance. Not Ethan. My own old jacket theory, the one where I tried to pretend it was just psychological stuff, a trick of the mind, it was starting to feel less like a theory and more like a flimsy blanket I was hiding under. My brain, though, my stubborn, logical, data-driven brain, it still screamed, no supernatural BS. There's an explanation. There has to be. But even my brain was getting tired, exhausted actually. It was a constant fight, this internal tug of war. The jacket, it hung there, always, on the back of my desk chair, draped over a hook, whatever, just a piece of leather.
But it was more than that. It had become this weight, a presence, like a dark cloud following me even when I wasn't wearing it. It was stealing my peace, one weird, intense emotion at a time. The skepticism, it hadn't gone away, but it had morphed into something heavy, something that drained me dry. I felt thin, stretched out, like my nerves were constantly exposed. I was getting desperate, like proper desperate. I needed to either break free from this or understand it, really understand it, not just with my half-baked theories. So, when I saw the flyer for the local history exhibition at the community library, something in me just clicked. It was small, low-key, just some old photos and artifacts from the town, nothing spooky, nothing out of the ordinary, just local history. The perfect place for my final experiment, right? One last-ditch effort for my dying logic. "This is it," I mumbled to myself, adjusting the collar of the jacket. Yeah, I wore it. Of course I wore it. Part of me wanted to face it, one last time, in a public, perfectly normal setting, to prove myself right, to shut that wiggling worm of unease up for good. Or, if I was being honest, to see what else it could throw at me, like a glutton for emotional punishment. The library was quiet, smelled like old books and dust, exactly what you'd expect. The exhibition was in a corner, just a few glass cases, some faded photographs on corkboards. I walked around, trying to focus on the sepia-toned faces, the dusty tools, the stories of people long gone. All very normal, very historical. I felt a familiar flicker of something. Not intense, not yet, just a low hum, like a tiny, almost imperceptible tremor deep inside me. I ignored it, pushing it down. Data collection, that's all this was. Then I saw her, Mrs. Gable. She was a fixture in this town, been a volunteer at the History Society since forever. Sweet old lady, always had a gentle smile, a kind word.
Like your grandma, if your grandma was really into local archives. She was standing by a display about the town's founding families, polishing a small, tarnished silver locket with a soft cloth. She looked up as I approached, that familiar, crinkly smile spreading across her face. "Ethan, dear, haven't seen you at one of these in ages. Always nice to see a young face taking an interest." Her voice was soft, warm. Everything about her was just comforting, normal. Then her eyes drifted down, to the jacket. Her smile didn't falter, not even a little bit. It just shifted, becoming a little softer, almost nostalgic. Her eyes, those kind, roomy old eyes, narrowed just a fraction, like she was focusing on a memory tucked deep away. "Oh, that old jacket," she said, her voice still completely calm, almost as if she was talking about the weather or what she had for dinner last night. Nothing, absolutely nothing in her tone hinted at anything out of the ordinary. "I remember it, dear. Yes, I do." My breath caught somewhere in my chest. A cold knot started to twist in my stomach. The air around me suddenly felt thicker, heavier, like all the dust in the library had just settled on my skin. She continued, completely oblivious to the sudden icy dread creeping up my spine. "It was the Albright boys, wasn't it? Poor little thing, always full of emotions, that one. Cried and got angry so easily. His parents, they were always trying to figure him out." She paused, then chuckled softly, a gentle, sad sound. "They'd often make him wear that jacket, you know. Said it helped keep him warm through his emotional fits. Poor little chap." The Albright boy. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not a punch, more like a sudden, silent impact. The kind that leaves you breathless, with ringing ears. The Albright boy, always full of emotions, cried and got angry easily. Emotional fits. It echoed in my head, each word a hammer blow against the fortress of my logic. It wasn't a previous owner.
It wasn't some anonymous adult whose vague, mature emotions I was absorbing. It was a child, a little boy, a poor little thing. I stood there, frozen solid. My feet felt glued to the dusty floor. The jacket, the one draped casually over my shoulders just seconds ago, suddenly felt impossibly heavy, like it was filled with lead, or something far, far worse, 1,000 times heavier than its actual weight. Everything I had built, every single logical explanation, every scientific theory, every journal entry in my jacket emotion diary, it all came crashing down, smashed, shattered into a million tiny, meaningless pieces, like a sandcastle hit by a tsunami. It wasn't some vague historical empathy for a grown-up's past. It was something else, something utterly, horrifyingly specific. It wasn't adult sadness, controlled and rational. It was the infinite, raw, crushing despair of a child. Not adult frustration, but the explosive, unthinking, all-consuming fury of a kid who couldn't cope. Not a grown man's loneliness, but the wordless, desperate isolation of a little boy left behind. If it wasn't empathy, if it wasn't my overactive imagination, then what the hell was it? What was actually seeping into me? How could the pure, untamed, uncontrolled emotions of a child haunt me like this? A wave. Oh God, another wave. But this one was different. It wasn't the usual flash of anger or the sudden gut-wrenching loneliness. This was a deep, aching sadness, a profound, innocent grief that had nothing to do with me. It swelled in my chest, tightening around my throat, stinging my eyes. A tiny little boy's sadness. I stared down at the vintage leather jacket on my own body, my vision blurring. My logic, my reason, my stubborn refusal to believe in anything beyond the tangible, it was completely gone, obliterated. And all that was left was me, standing there in a perfectly normal, dusty library, with an old woman still smiling gently, and a question that felt like ice water poured directly into my soul. A question that made my blood run cold, chilling me to the bone. If not that, then what is